In the dense, ancient forests of the Ardennes, where mist lingers year-round and shadows stretch unnaturally long, there's a legend most locals refuse to speak of. It's said that something roams the woods, something not human, but capable of wearing the faces of those you love. They call them the Whisperers, or more fittingly, skinwalkers. This is the story of Elise and her brother Thomas, who learned the truth of these creatures one fateful autumn night. Elise and Thomas grew up hearing warnings from their grandmother. Never stray too deep into the woods, especially after dark. The forest has eyes, and it remembers. But like most modern kids, they dismiss the old tales as superstition. When Thomas suggested a late-night hike into the woods for a thrill, Elise reluctantly agreed. The forest was silent as they ventured in, the only sounds coming from their boots, crunching leaves and the occasional snap of a twig. Thomas laughed, trying to break the tension. "See? Nothing but trees and owls," he said, shining his flashlight into the towering pines. But Elise couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. About an hour into their hike, Thomas stopped suddenly, raising a hand. Elise followed his gaze. Through the trees, they saw a figure standing eerily still, a man facing away from them, bathed in pale moonlight. "Hey, you lost?" Thomas called out. The figure didn't move. Elise grabbed Thomas's arm. "Let's go back," she whispered, her voice tight. But Thomas, ever the skeptic, stepped closer. "Sir, do you need help?" The man turned slowly. His face was eerily smooth, his features just wrong. His eyes were hollow, and his smile stretched unnaturally wide. Then, without warning, he crouched and darted into the darkness, moving like an animal. The siblings stood frozen, their breath visible in the cold night air. Then, from somewhere ahead, a voice called out, "Thomas! Elise!" It was their grandmother's voice, unmistakable, but distant and distorted. Elise grabbed Thomas's arm again, pulling him. "We need to leave. Now." The voice came again, closer this time. "Thomas, Elise." It was clearer, more urgent. But how could their grandmother be here? She was home, miles away. The flashlight flickered, casting long, jagged shadows. Then, to their horror, a second voice joined in, Elise's own voice, calling out from behind them. "Thomas, come here." Panic took over. They ran, their path lit only by the failing flashlight and the faint moonlight. The voices followed, shifting and multiplying. Each one sounded like someone they knew. Friends, neighbors, their parents. But each was wrong, twisted, growing louder with every step. They burst into a clearing, gasping for breath when they saw her. Their grandmother, standing in the middle of the clearing, her back turned to them. She turned slowly, her head tilting unnaturally to the side. Her mouth opened, but the sound that came out wasn't human. It was a low, guttural growl. Her body began to change, stretching and contorting into something monstrous. Long limbs, skeletal and unnatural, replaced her frail frame. Her face split into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The siblings screamed and ran, but the creature was fast. It darted between trees, its form flickering as it changed shapes. A deer, a shadow, a man. The ground seemed to shift beneath them, and the forest closed in. Just when they thought they'd be caught, they saw the faint glow of a road through the trees. Summoning every ounce of strength, they sprinted toward it. The voices faded as they broke through the tree line and collapsed onto the asphalt. A passing car screeched to a halt. The driver, an elderly man, jumped out. "Are you two okay?" What happened? Elise tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. She glanced back at the woods. For a split second, she saw glowing eyes staring back at her before they disappeared into the darkness. The siblings never spoke of that night again. They moved away from the Ardennes, but the forest stayed with them in their dreams. Sometimes Elise still hears her grandmother's voice late at night, calling her name, and sometimes she wonders if one day she'll answer